Ladies and gentlemen, let us all rise for the arrival of the Honorable Senate President and the Senators of the Republic of the Philippines.
The 26th session of the Senate, the first regular session of the 18th Congress, is hereby called to order. Senator Maria Lourdes Nancy Binay will lead the chamber in prayer.
Panginoon, amin pong ipinagpapasalamat ang mga biyayang aming natanggap at tatanggapin pa mula sa inyong wagas na pagmamahal. Dalangin po namin na kami inyong patuloy na basbasan at patnubayan upang magampanan namin sa araw-araw ang aming mga tungkulin at responsibilidad sa bayan at sa aming kapwa. Sa iyong mapagmahal na kamay, matamo sana namin ang kasaganahan, maranasan sana namin ang kapayapaan, at maghari nawa ang kalayaan at katurungan sa aming bansa. Nagsusumamo kami sa inyo dito sa Senado na kami ay inyong bigkisin at pag-isahin bilang instrumento sa pagpapaunlad ng mga biyayang inyong iginawad sa amin, nang aming lubusang maihatid ang ginhawa ng inyong pagmamahal para sa bawat Pilipino. Ito po ay aming hinihiling sa ngalan ng inyong anak na si Jesus. Amen.
Amen. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 18 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 25th session Monday, September 23, 2019, and consider the same as approved. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The journals approved.
Mr. President, we have special guests here with us today in the gallery and the VIP area, particularly former Supreme Court Justice and now Governor of Marinduque, Governor Presbitero Velasco is here with us. Together with Governor Melchor Diclas of Benguet is here as well. And our former colleague of the House of Representatives, now Governor of Eastern Samar, Governor Ben Ebardone. We have also with us Mayor Shamin Mastura of Sultan Kudarat, Maguindanao. And we have with us several other political leaders from Aklan. We have Vice Mayor Cynthia de la Cruz, Councilor Mark Quimpo, Councilor Philip Quimpo, Councilor Luces, and Councilor Bautista, together with Nicholas Jason Go of Punong Barangay of Tacloban City, guest of OS Marcos.
What about the guests of Senator Gatchalian?
Yes, Mr. President, I completely missed that. We have guests from the Mrs. World Band. They're all saying Mrs. Mrs. Universe.
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Chair.
then they are not the
Mrs.
guests of
Universe.
Senator Gatchalian.
I hope not, sir.
They are the guests of Senator Ralph Recto
Yes, sir. That is correct. We'd like to welcome them, Mr. President.
and Senator Lapid.
And Senator Lapid, yes. But we welcome them. We'd like to welcome them into the Senate.
We
Mr.
would,
President.
would like to
No,
welcome
Mrs.
all the governors
Mrs. World, Mrs. Universe.
and
Kay Lito Lapid daw.
the guests of Senator Lapid. We welcome them.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'd like to also congratulate you on your golden wedding anniversary last September 22. 50 years married to the same beautiful wife. Your beautiful wife, Mr. President.
thank you very
Congratulations, sir. That is a feat we would like to all emulate.
Thank you. That
We're
is
trying
a-
to emulate.
That is a feat for my wife.
Yes, Mr. President. We should pass a Senate resolution
Commending
to
my wife.
commend Ma'am Helen. Just kidding aside, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary will proceed with the reference of business.
Reference of business, bills on first reading. Senate number 1066 entitled An Act Amending Certain Provisions in Republic Act number 9510, otherwise known as the Credit Information System Act, in order to protect the rights of borrowers and data subjects from erroneous and inaccurate credit reports and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to the Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies.
Senate number 1067, an act creating in the Department of Education the plantilla positions of guidance counselors in every elementary school and additional plantilla positions of guidance counselor for high school, increasing the salaries of guidance counselors and guidance-related positions and appropriating funds therefore, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to the Committees on Basic Education and Finance.
Senate number 1068, an act developing the Pili industry, creating for the purpose the Pili Subsidy Fund and the Pili Research and Development Center, and are declaring the province of Sorsogon as the Pili capital of the Philippines, introduced by Senator Poe.
Referred to the Committees on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, Committees on Trade and Finance.
Senate number 1069, an act designating the third week of November as Linggo ng Pag-alala at Paghilom for road crash victims, survivors, and families, introduced by Senator Poe.
To the Committee on Public Services.
Senate number 1070, an act establishing the rules and policies on the domestic administrative adoption proceeding of Filipino and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Poe.
To the Committees on Women, Social Justice and Finance.
Senate number 1071, an act professionalizing paralegals practice in the Philippines, creating for this purpose a professional regulatory board of paralegals, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Zubiri.
Referred to the Committees on Civil Service and Finance.
Resolutions, PS Resolution number 141, entitled Resolution Honoring and Commending Batch Sakabyas, the Philippine contingent to the 46th Ship for the Southeast Asian and Japanese Youth Program, introduced by Senator Angara.
To the Committee on Rules.
PS Resolution number 142, a resolution honoring and commending the Filipino teachers for their hard work and commitment to shaping the learners of all generations, introduced by Senator Villa Jr.
To the Committee on Rules.
PS Resolution number 143, resolution getting the sense of the Senate in supporting the youth strike for climate on September 20 to 27, 2019, its cause and its succeeding steps towards climate action, introduced by Senator Ontiveros.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader. We have unfinished business.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also have a guest with us, Justice De Monteverde, who will be with us tomorrow in the Commission appointments for the position of the JBC as representative, Mr. President.
Yes, we welcome Justice Monteverde.
For the JBC. Representative JBC. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1043. This is an act postponing the May 20 May 2020 barangay elections and Sangguniang Kabataan elections. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, we are in the status of the measure is, the parliamentary status of the measures, we're in the period, we closed the period of interpellation yesterday. I move that we open the period of amendments. I so move.
Hearing no objection, period of amendments is open.
May we recognize the sponsors, Senator Amy Marcos, for the committee amendments.
Senator Amy Marcos is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Majority Leader. Following the vigorous and enlightened debates of the past few days and submitting to the greater wisdom of this chamber, I will no longer be introducing committee amendments, but instead be proposing the following individual amendments as recommended by our members, the matters of which arose during the period of interpellation. Firstly, page 2, line 2, delete the date, October 23, 2017, replacing it with the words, the second Monday of May 2020. On the same page, line 3, delete the phrase, second Monday of 2018, replace it with the date, December 5, 2022. On page 2, line 5, delete the phrase, second Monday of May 2023.
Wait, Senator Marcos. Let us start with...
One by one. Okay.
No, let's start with the... if these are individual amendments and our colleagues are have proposed amendments also, let us start with page 1.
Okay.
On page 1, any amendments on page 1?
I don't have the original.
Except for the title, of course. Any amendments on page 1? Hearing none, we proceed with page 2.
Okay. I was, apologies, I was told to go page by page.
Yes.
But there are several amendments, individual amendments on
Page.
the different pages.
Yes.
We proceed to page 2, line
Page
2.
Line 2.
And delete the date October 23, 2017, replacing it with the words, the second Monday of May 2020.
Second Monday of May 2020.
Mr.
The
President,
Minority Leader.
with the indulgence of the good sponsor, we find difficulty following the amendments. Is it possible either if it's not inconvenient, can we have written
Yes.
copies of the amendments?
Before we go into the page by page.
Yes.
All right. Let us provide the members. In the meantime,
My apologies, Minority Leader. I was under the impression that the pages had distributed the written version, but I will follow up and make sure they get them to the members now.
We have only...
in the meantime, 1 minute suspension.
Hindi pala binigay.
All right, we're ready to resume. Session resumed. Senator Marcos, you're recognized. We are on page 2 on the period of individual amendments.
Thank you very much. For purposes of clarity, Mr. President, I repeat, and I take you to page 2, line 2, wherein we delete the date October 23, 2017, replace it with the words, the second Monday of May 2020. I so move.
Any objections? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
On the same page, line 3, we delete the phrase the second Monday of 2018, replacing it with the date December 5, 2022.
December 5, 20.
December 5, 2022 shall be the date of the next
Yes.
barangay and SK
right.
elections.
Any
I
objection?
so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved. Amendment is approved.
On page 2, line 5, we delete the phrase second Monday of May 2023 and replace it with the first Monday of December 2025 and every 3 years thereafter. I so move. As recommended by the Minority Leader and other members, we seek to regularize the phrase 3 years.
Remove the brackets.
Oh,
Any-
I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On page 2, line 14, we replace May 2023 once again with the same date of the next elections, December 5, 2022.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
On page 2, finally, line 15, we delete the words June 30 and in lieu thereof insert the words January 31 as the assumption into office of the barangay officials.
All right. The minority
so
leader is
move.
recognized.
Yes.
Mr. President, will the good sponsor accept the following amendment to her amendment? Instead of January 31, we propose that it be January 1. Because the election is on December 5, there is no reason for a very long gap between the election and assumption of office. We propose an amendment that instead of January 31 as the date of the assumption, it should be January 1. We submit that.
What does the sponsor say?
Mr. President and Senator Drilon, please. This was the date that we first recommended, January 1, but as it's usually in the middle of the holiday and is a holiday itself, it may be difficult. What is your pleasure?
There is no difficulty, especially that this is only a barangay. This is the smallest unit of governance. There is no need for a very lengthy turnover period. And for symmetry, it is better that we do it on January 1 so that the term of office starts on January 1, so for 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
For every 3 years.
We so move, Mr. President.
So
We submit it to the
Mr.
sponsor.
President, with all due respect, January 1 is usually the date following much revelry, drinking, and carousing. The barangays and the SKs urge that we can meet midway at January 15.
I cannot understand, Mr. President, the resistance. Anyway, I have a motion, an amendment to the amendment. I think the procedure should be, if the good sponsor rejects it, then she so rejects it and appeal to the floor. I'll ask for a
So
vote.
the proposed amendment of the sponsor is that it be January 31st. As of now, she is amenable to January 15. So do I take it that your proposal now really is for this amendment to be January 15?
I think January 15 is quite reasonable, so
All
there
right.
will not be an extended period
All right.
between
All right,
proclamation
now the
and
minority
assumption.
leader is proposing that it be January 1. Are you willing to accept the proposal to the amendment?
There's a great deal of resistance to January 1. It was my proposal in the beginning because people, many of the officials concerned will be coming from fiestas and other barrios far away and may not be in the best condition to commence office.
So the minority leader, your amendment is unacceptable to the sponsor. What is your pleasure?
I appeal to the floor.
We appeal to the floor, majority leader.
Sorry.
Ask for 1 minute.
There is an
suspension,
appeal.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Ask for 1 minute.
Session suspended.
Aye.
Oh,
No, it's
Senator
just about
Lacson
to
is
ask,
recognized.
what time on January 1 or January 15? Is it noon time or
12 noon of January
0001?
O kung noon time, siguro naman.
Noon time.
Yes, we can insert the phrase noontime of January 1, 2000, the year following.
Mahirap yung noon time. 12 noon na.
Oh, 12 noon, sige.
Noon time
Sorry,
could
sir.
be 1 p.m. eh.
Sige, sir, 12 noon. I'm sorry.
12 noon of January 1. That is your proposal. What does the sponsor say? Unacceptable.
May I ask
Still
for a minute
unacceptable.
All
suspension
right,
again,
we
Mr. President?
therefore amend to the amendment the new date of January 1
12
on
noon.
or before noon.
Pumayag na siya.
No, wag mong na yung on and before. Dahil before is 12 noon. We'll assume office
Or
at
the
12
at noon
noon.
time of January 1.
Yan. Noon of
I so
January 1.
move.
So there's no conflict, Mr. President.
there's no
The
more conflict.
sponsor agrees to the
So
amendment of the
yes,
minority floor leader.
The
So
wording to the amendment is 12
no need to
noon
divide the House.
of January 1.
Ang mapangit ng taking puro mga
And every 3 years thereafter also. But that is not necessary. The amendment is
Oo nga.
12 noon of January 1. Any objection?
It's a holiday.
No longer any.
Hearing none, motion is approved. You may proceed.
That's it.
Senator Marcos.
Is that it?
Subject
Okay,
to style.
finally-
Subject to style.
For
Instead
the
of
Sixth
on, you can use at.
Amendment.
Ah,
For the Sixth Amendment.
yes.
Where is number 8? Number 8, the Eighth Amendment, page 2, line 18.
Senator Marcos, before you
Yes,
proceed,
Mr. President.
there is a request by the Secretariat for you to read how it will appear now.
Okay.
The entire Section 1 and Section 2.
The entire
As
Section 1
amended.
shall read as follows. Section 1, date of election. There shall be synchronized barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections, which shall be held on July 15, 2002. Subsequent synchronized barangay and sangguniang kabataan
2022.
elections shall be held on the last Monday of October 2007 and every 3 years thereafter, provided that the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections on the second Monday of May 2020, this is the first amendment po, shall be postponed to December 5, 2022, second amendment po. Subsequent synchronized Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections shall be held on the first Monday of December 2025 and every 3 years thereafter. That is Section 1.
Wala na, deleted na yun. So it has practically deleted the 1 year following a national law license thereafter. Ano? You're no longer
Yes, we are no longer insisting
that.
on the 1 year gap between the national and
Yeah.
barangay elections, given that the COMELEC said that they can live with
Yeah.
close to 7 months.
All right, so period. Now, Section 2. Section 2,
Okay.
well, as proposed.
In Section 2, Section 4 of Republic Act 9164 as amended is hereby further amended to read as follows. Section 4, the assumption to office. the term of office of the barangay and sangguniang kabataan officials elected under this act shall commence at noon of June 30 next following their election, provided, however, that the term of the office of the barangay and sangguniang kabataan officials elected on December 5, 2022 elections and subsequently thereafter shall commence at noon of January 1 next following their election.
All right.
I so move if that is
Clear.
acceptable
12
to the minority leader and the other members.
At 12 noon.
Yes.
All right. At noon na lang. Yun yung sa Constitution, at noon. All right. At noon. Remove the 12. Subject
Shall
to style.
commence,
Yes.
to repeat and reiterate, shall commence at noon of January 1st next following their election.
All right.
Is that correct, Mr.
Yes,
President?
it's correct and clear. Now we can proceed with the next amendment.
Yes.
Still on page 2?
The eighth amendment on page 2, line 18, after the word barangay, may we please add the words and sangguniang kabataan.
Any objections?
I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
On page 2, line 19, after the word barangay, may we please add once again the words and sangguniang kabataan.
Line 19. Any
I
objection?
so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
On page 2, line 21, we seek to delete the comma after the word panlalawigan. I so move, a mere matter of
Editorial
style.
amendment. Yes. Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is approved.
On the same page and line, we delete the phrase, as the case may be, no longer being relevant. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is approved.
On page 2, line 22, let us replace the phrase, the next barangay election with January 30, 2020. June 30, 2020, I'm sorry. I so move.
June
June 30.
30.
June 30, 2020.
Yeah. Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is approved.
On page 2, the next line, line 23, after the word barangay, may we please add, and the Federasyon ng Sangguniang Kabataan. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment approved.
And on the same page, in the following lines, 23 and 24, let us replace the words July 31, 2023 with June 30, 2020.
Any objection?
I so move.
Hearing no objection, amendment approved.
On the same page, still page 2, line 24, we insert a period, a matter of style, after the word sanggunian. I so move.
Sanggunians, period. Any objection? Amendment approved.
On the same page, lines 24 and 25, we delete the phrase as surplusage under the supervision of the Department of Interior and Local Government. I so move.
Any objection? Here. Senator Tolentino is recognized.
May we know from the sponsor, Mr. President, the rationale behind the deletion of the phrase under the supervision of the DILG, considering that it is the actions emanating from the DILG provincial officers, DILG city, local government officers, and even DILG regional officers that would trigger the actual conduct of federation elections. And without whose actions probably the local government officials, specifically the governors, the mayors, would not move specifically as it would entail additional COMELEC, quote-unquote, neutral work for the conduct of such federation election, Mr. President.
Yes,
May we know the rationale behind the
Mr.
deletion of the
President
phrase?
and Senator Tolentino, Following consultation with the COMELEC as well as the DILG, the word supervision could be confusing inasmuch as both the barangay and the SK have their own electoral mechanisms. The role of the DILG would simply be to monitor the same and not directly supervise the exercise of voting.
But, Mr. President, would the sponsor agree that the calling, the timing, the venue, as well as the mechanics has been historically and traditionally been conducted by the Department of the Interior and Local Government?
I think, Mr. President, it is the SK that has established its own electoral mechanism, and the DILG does not directly supervise their elections any longer.
So-
The barangay is the same. They have their own mechanism, and they enjoined us that we delete under the supervision of the DILG.
So as long, Mr. President, as long as the mechanics would be laid down under perhaps the IRR of this law, I think the DILG should have a direct participation in all of these federation elections, Mr. President.
And so we restore? Okay, I think the IRR would be the proper location for said mechanics, as well as they implement the existing laws that govern the same.
Because, Mr. President, usually it is the MLGOO, CLGOO, and the provincial counterparts who would initiate the conduct of the elections. But with the explanation coming from the sponsor, I think I accept the rationale for the deletion of the said phrase. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Tolentino, and we shall simply at this point remind the DILG as well as the COMELEC to indicate the precise role of the DILG following the intent of the Barangay and SK Reform Acts. Section 3, therefore, yes.
Yes.
We recognize our Senate President Pro Tem, Senator.
Senator Ralph Recto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just an inquiry, Mr. President. What stage are we in right now? Is this a committee amendment or?
Individual amendments, period of individual
period-
amendments.
Okay. And I understand that we're already on page 2.
Yes.
And I understand that we've already approved that the election will be held on December 5, 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
And therefore, there will be 2 elections in 2022.
Yes.
You will have the presidential on May and the barangay elections on December. And when we had this in the past, Mr. President, as I mentioned yesterday, 2 elections in 1 year, chances are this will be postponed again. Because the COMELEC has said, even during the hearings, that they would prefer a separate year for the barangay election. Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Yes,
to
Senator Marcos.
clarify for Senator Recto's query,
Yes.
we have consulted with COMELEC, having reservations about extending their term so long, already indicated by the good gentleman from Batangas yesterday. And upon consultation with the COMELEC, they said that no failure of election and other such problems as occurred in 2010 would repeat if they were given more than 6 months. It's the printing, distribution, verification of ballot faces that takes over 4.5 months. In this case, we have given 6.5 months, which they consider sufficient time.
And this is manual.
That is correct, Mr. President. It is manual, it is not hybrid, so the long period of developing the source codes will no longer be required.
But it will be easier for the COMELEC if they were to conduct the elections a year after or a year before. Is that correct?
That is correct, Senator Recto. I actually offered in my bill 1 whole year, also rendering simultaneous all the terms of office. However, the concern of many of our members, including our minority leader, was that the extension of term would be so long.
Yeah, but the difference is 6 months. Oh, the difference is only 5 or 6 months. Because the original bill was May of 2023, and
Yes.
there's a reasonable chance of having that election not postponed because it is a year after.
Yes, we are giving them close to 7 months. So there's a difference of 5 months.
Yes, my fear, Mr. President, is that if we conduct the elections for the barangay in December of 2022, there will be 2 national elections held on that year. One on May, one in December. The future president, whoever that may be, will come back to Congress. Again, we are not finding a permanent solution here in this case, and ask again for a postponement of the barangay election. So the initial fear that we're giving too long an extension period will probably be even worse at that point in time when they will request for an extension again of the term of office of barangay.
Yes, Mr.
So,
President.
and in the past, when we've had this in the past, normally if it is within 1 year, we ask for a postponement. That has been the history. So, I would have preferred May 2023 or May 2021, Mr. President. But
The May
I leave that up to
2023 was the original committee report, but our colleagues, particularly the minority leader,
Floor Leader, Mr. President.
suggested 6 months instead because
Actually, initially, Mr.
they've
President-
been in office for too long.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. President and Senator Recto, our majority leader, as you may have read, the original committee report, as well as my own bill, indicated May 2023. However, upon prodding, both during the budget hearings for the COMELEC budget, as well as in consideration of our members' concern that the extension was excessive if it reached May 2023, we have come up with a work program that starts October 2021, working backwards, and it brought us at the earliest date of December 2022. So 6.5 months or so apparently is a short period. The COMELEC will be pressed for time, but they claim that they can do it without undue failure of elections and other problems.
Compromise na yun, Rafa. It was supposed to be May. To add to the discussion, Mr. President, with the permission of 2 gentlemen, lady senators, it was a compromise because initially some of the bills that were filed were October of 2022, and it was too close to May of 2022. And therefore, there was another proposal that it would be made on May of 2023, but many of us felt that it would have been too long of a term. It would have been about almost close to 7 years, seated as a barangay
Yes.
chair.
Mr. President, I will no longer prolong the issue or prolong this point, but let it not be said that I did not put into record that there is a higher probability of postponing again this election come for the next administration when they get to power after May of 2022. With that, thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, so are we still on page 2? Sponsor?
Yes, Mr. President, I shall,
The motion is to delete
under the
line
supervision of the
24 to 25
DILG.
from under up
I
to
so
the
move.
semicolon. Any objection? No. Before the semicolon, government. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Amendments adopted.
Yes, for purposes of recording and for clarity with our secretariat, may I read the entire section 3 of holdover once again? Until their successors shall have been duly elected and qualified, all incumbent barangay and sanggunian kabataan officials, that's the first amendment in that section, shall remain in office unless sooner removed or suspended for cause. provided that barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan officials who are ex officio members of the Sangguniang Bayan, Sangguniang Panlunsod, or Sangguniang Panlalawigan shall continue to serve as such members in the Sangguniang concerned until June 30 of 2022. This is another amendment referring to the previous act and the term in there. The Liga ng mga Barangay and the Federasyon ng Sangguniang Kabataan at the municipal, city, and provincial levels shall, not later than June 30 of 2020, conduct elections for ex officio positions in the Sanggunians. I so move.
Yes, it's already amended and accepted. All right. Majority, is there any other amendment?
With that, Mr. President and Majority Leader, I have no further amendments. Thank you.
Mr. President, before we close the period of amendments, may we request the sponsor, together with the Secretariat, to give us clean copies of
As
the measure?
amended.
As amended, Mr.
All
President,
right.
as amended.
All
So may we ask for a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President?
Senator, the Minority Leader is recognized before the suspension.
Point of inquiry, are we going to approve this afternoon, Mr. President?
Hopefully.
Yes,
With your
because the
concurrence.
majority leader was telling me we have to approve it before Senator Gordon comes back to the floor. That's what he said.
That's a very good idea.
Absolutely not true,
Minority
Mr.
Leader.
He said
Magagalit
that,
yung ninong ko sa akin. Actually, the conversation went about between Senator Drilon and Senator Grace Poe. I have nothing to do with that conversation, Mr. President. I would like to strike that off the record, lest my ninong be really upset with me. May sakit na nga yung mama. Sasamahan pa natin dito.
The statement is stricken off the record.
Mr. President, move for a 1-minute suspension to prepare the clean copy.
I don't think 1 minute is enough to prepare
One
a clean
Senate
copy.
minute,
As
Mr.
one
President.
Senate minute is
Senate
enough.
minute, yes,
All
Mr.
right. Session suspended for 1 Senate minute.
Thank you very much.
Secretary is ordered to produce a clean copy right away as amended. Distribute to the members.
okay na? You saw it na? The clean copy? It's good? Oh, the House approved it. There's that. It's hard, you know.
Session resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we'd like to resume consideration of Senate Bill number 10043. We actually, before we suspended the parliamentary procedure, was what we were in the period of amendments. I mean, the parliamentary
Status.
situation it was in the period of amendments. We already have a clean copy of the amendments done by the Honorable Marcos, Mr. President. We'd like to ask our colleagues if they are okay with the amendments, so we can close the period of amendments. We'd like to recognize Senator Ralph Recto. Mr. President.
Senator Ralph Recto is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Majority Leader. This is just a manifestation. Since I was late entering the hall earlier, I would have proposed, if the chairman was not yet in the point in time of introducing her individual amendments, I would have proposed certain amendments. Just to put on the record, Mr. President, I would have proposed this. On page 1, line 1, replace entire section 1 with the following. Section 1 of Republic Act number 9164 is amended, is hereby further amended to read as follows. Section 1, date of election. There shall be synchronized barangay Sangguniang Kabataan elections, which shall be held on July 15, 2002. Subsequent synchronized barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections shall be held on the last Monday of October 2007 and every 3 years thereafter, provided that the barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections on October 23, 2017 shall be postponed to the second Monday of May 2018. Subsequent synchronized barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections shall be held on the second Monday of May 2023 and every 6 years thereafter. Would have been my first amendment, Mr. President. Meaning to say that the term of the barangay would be 6 years. No, that would have been my proposed amendment
That
instead
would have been
of,
your proposal. And then,
so that we fix the problem.
Okay.
Hindi na lang yung tuwing administration, we keep on postponing the elections. Okay? And my second amendment would have been, insert a new section 2 to read as follows. Section 2 of Republic Act number 9164 as amended is hereby further amended to read as follows. Section 2, term of office. The term of office of all barangay and sangguniang kabataan officials after the May 2023 elections shall be 6 years, provided that no barangay elective official shall serve for more than 2 consecutive terms in the same position. I would have been open to an amendment to 1 term. Yeah? Provided further that the Sangguniang Kabataan elective official shall hold office for 1 term. Provided finally that the term of office shall be reckoned from the 2013 barangay elections for barangay elective officials and 2018 barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections for Sangguniang Kabataan elective officials. Voluntary renunciation of office for any length of time shall not be considered as an interruption in the continuity of service for the full term for which the elective official was elected. So I would have proposed, Mr. President, so that there would be no future postponements. Once a 6-year term, 2 consecutive terms, may be open to the idea of a 1 term for the barangay officials, Mr. President. So it's just a manifestation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate that. There will be a BICAM, as we have heard that the House has just passed their own version. And certainly the extension of terms, not only for barangay officials, but for other local officials, for mayors and governors, is a position that I too maintain.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, no other member wishes to interpolate or to amend the measure. We move to close the period of amendments, Mr. President.
any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments is closed.
Mr. President, I move to approve on second reading Senate Bill number 1043 under Committee Report number 4, as amended.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1043 is approved on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend consideration of the measure.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Congratulations to the distinguished lady senator from Leyte and Ilocos Norte for the first bill approved by the
Yes.
18th Congress.
Yes. Senator Ronald De La Rosa is recognized.
Mr. President, there has been speculations circulating around regarding the alleged involvement of the Chief PNP, General Albayalde, in the so-called Agaw Bato scheme. In fairness to General Albayalde, I would like to move for this body to allow or to
Allow.
authorize the committee, the Blue Ribbon Committee, to disclose the contents of the executive session that transpired during the last Senate Committee hearing regarding the GCTA anomaly. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator, the minority leader is recognized.
Mr. President, would the gentleman care to spread into the record the rationale for the authority being sought to make public the
Contents.
testimony in executive session?
Yes, I think he was laying it out as a predicate that there are many speculations. Please, Senator De La Rosa.
Yes, Mr. President, since that executive session was made during the GCTA hearing, and it's I think it's to be fair to the ones that is being alluded to. I would like to have the records or the contents of that executive session be made available for those who are interested, so that the truth shall prevail, not speculations, Mr. President, because the accused is presently the chief of the Philippine National Police, and it would be very unfair if doubts are being casted upon him.
The point is, I think the point of the gentleman from Mindanao is that there are many speculations coming out regarding the contents of what transpired during the executive session. And so he is seeking the permission of the body to give the Blue Ribbon Committee an authority to divulge what transpired in that executive session, to once and for all remove the cloud of doubt on anyone that has been named.
Just wanted to spread that on the record, Mr.
Yes, sir.
President. But may I also remind the chamber that under section 128 of our rules, the proceedings are considered confidential until the Senate, by 2/3 vote of all its members,
Yes, sir. I was about to
decides
raise
to
that.
lift the ban of secrecy. That should be 16 votes, Mr. President. I'm sorry, 16? Yeah, 16 votes. I don't think we can act on the motion at this point.
Yes, Mr. President, to add to the discussions, Mr. President, with the permission of our Minority Floor Leader, we had the similar situation with the Acho Castillo case, when we had an executive session in the lounge. And to be able to assist in the investigation of the case, we needed to get, as you said, as the Minority Floor Leader said, at least 16 votes of our members to act on it. And what we did, Mr. President, is we got the signatures of all members. At the time, all 24 members had signed, including Senator De Lima, who I believe was also still being incarcerated. But she signed in support of opening up what was discussed during that executive session. So as a proper procedure, Mr. President, maybe the best is to consult a majority of our colleagues. I'm sure they will not be against the motion, but we just have to wait by probably...
We
by
have
tomorrow.
asked that the bell be rung. And
Okay,
give it
Mr.
a few
President.
minutes.
We'll wait for 16 members.
Let's see if we can muster 16 and if 16 will approve.
Yes, Mr. President. That would be the best proper procedure.
Yeah.
May we suspend for 1 second, 1 minute, Mr. President?
Yes, and ask the Sergeant at Arms to inform us on how many senators are there in the building.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you.
Session is suspended. Bababayin mo.
Sounds family. Tayo ba? 16. Yung sa ano sa FOI? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yan ka na naman. Don't you want to find out with this? I want to find out also. Ako, I wanted to find out. Tayo muna mix. Di natin alam mo. Ano, ay, ikaw alam mo na ba? Hindi, gusto ko muna. Kahit sa atin muna. Dapat tignan muna natin kung ano ba yung laman doon. Di ba dapat pag
Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the status now is there's a pending motion made by the Honorable Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa on divulging the matters taken up in
I
confidence during the
I-
executive session.
I think the motion was to authorize the Blue Ribbon Committee
Yes, but under our rules,
to,
just to specifically state the rules, if such a motion is to take place, we need 2/3 vote of all our members, which is a minimum of 16 senators, Your Honor, to lift the ban on secrecy. I
Yes,
believe the Minority Floor Leader would like to add.
Senator Drilon, Minority Leader.
Yes, I also wish to invite the attention of the chamber to the rules of procedure on inquiries in aid of legislation. Under section 11 of rule under section 11 of the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation, it provides that the testimony in executive session or any material taken in executive session or any summary thereof shall not be made public in whole or in part unless authorized by the committee.
Correct.
Because the matter is before the committee.
Correct.
It is the committee who decided
Correct.
that an executive session be held. And therefore, technically, Mr. President, with all due respect to the Majority Leader and Senator Bato, we are in effect yanking out from the committee the resolution, not resolution, but this issue, which is basically a committee issue, just for clarification, because this will guide us for in our future deliberation. To me, it is clear that this is a matter for the committee, and whether or not the plenary would authorize the committee under the rules, the committee is so authorized.
In the past, Your Honors, there was an instance where Senator Trillanes stood on the floor to ask for the executive session be divulged. If I am not mistaken, if I recall it right, he used the main rules. The section 11 that we are citing
Is
is
on
part
the rules
of
of
the
inquiry in aid of.
Yes,
And Mr. President, to add the plenary powers, plenary agreements made in plenary, I will believe, will supersede the rules of the committee.
yes, because the committee is the agent of the Senate. And therefore, if we authorize the committee may.
Well,
May do
maybe
so.
just so this does not set a precedent,
Bad precedent. Yes.
may we suggest that the main motion be preceded by a motion to suspend application of section 11 of the rules of inquiry. Otherwise, I don't think it will be good for us just to disregard our own rules. And on the parliamentary status of this issue is that it is before the committee. One. Number two, it is the committee that conducted the executive session, and under the rules, it cannot be released unless otherwise decided by the committee on the principle that it is the committee, not the plenary, who has jurisdiction over the issue. That's the basic principle. That is why when a bill is referred to the committee, you need a motion on the floor, approved by the majority, to get it out of the committee because the committee has already acquired jurisdiction. That's my point, Mr. President.
Yes.
In asserting that it should be the committee because it is the matter is already referred to the committee and no longer in the jurisdiction of the plenary. I am just stating that, and I am just to make it of record. It's something that we must consider seriously. I'm willing to abide by the rule of the majority. I'm in the minority, so but I want to place this of record.
You want to say?
Yes, we are precisely following our rules. That is the reason that we would want a two-thirds vote to allow it. It need not be a two-thirds vote of the committee. It is a two-thirds vote by the Senate. Now,
Technically,
it is
Mr. President, if
just
we-
to
Yes.
allow the perspective of the minority leader, then what we can do is in the motion, the majority
We
leader
amend,
may
yes.
follow up with a motion saying that with unanimous consent, if
suspend
there is a
Section 11,
unanimous
Rule
consent,
Section
then it
11.
is already as if we suspended the rules on that particular.
On that particular,
measure.
yes, Mr.
No
President.
problem with that, Mr. President.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
But,
you, kind sir. Yes.
Mr. President, may I ask for a quick suspension? For just a quick suspension, Mr. President, because we have, before we suspend,
Senator Lacson is
recognize Senator
recognized.
Lacson.
Before we suspend, Mr. President, this is just a point of clarification. I happen to have in my possession the case folder of the administrative complaint, plus the action taken at the time by the PNP hierarchy. And I'd like to find out if this motion will include disclosure of the contents of such case folder.
It may or may not. This is the perspective of the presiding officer. It may not. So it is up to the chairman of the Committee on Defense if he would want to submit it to the chairman of Committee on Blue Ribbon.
I
to
need the
include-
concurrence of the body, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Yes, with the concurrence of the body, we may include it as part.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President.
We need to clarify with some members what we're supposed to be voting on now, Mr. President. So I ask for a 1-minute suspension to just.
Senator Tolentino first before we suspend.
Another point of clarification, Mr. President. Under our rules, if there is an executive session under Section 127, there is supposed to be a minutes of the executive session which shall be recorded in a separate book. My query, Mr. President, is that
Meron.
the motion of Senator De La Rosa is about the revelation of names. Will it include the minutes contained in the executive session as recorded in a separate book?
Yes, the answer is in the positive.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It is included. The committee secretary of the Blue Ribbon is here, and he has informed me that it is contained. There is a transcript, a sealed transcript. So,
So, Mr. President,
Session
may I ask for
suspended
a
for 1
1-minute
minute.
suspension, just to
1 minute.
confirm.
Session resumed.
Mr. President, can I have one more minute, Mr. President? One suspension for one more minute.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, yes, the motion of Senator Bato, just to reiterate the motion of Senator De La Rosa, is that he's moving that the discussions during executive session last week on the Blue Ribbon Committee that the Blue Ribbon Committee be given the authority, Mr. President, to divulge the information on that last executive session. It's the Blue Ribbon, Mr. President, committee who will decide. We're giving them
We are authorizing
We're
the Blue Ribbon
authorizing them.
Committee.
the authority, Mr. President. And with that effect, we also suspend Section 11 of the Rules of Procedures Governing Inquiries in Aid of Legislation. So we have Section 11, to suspend Section 11 on executive session and public hearing of the rules of procedure in governing inquiries in aid of legislation.
So to avoid a compound motion, let us go first to the first motion.
Yes.
Unanimous consent to suspend Section 11.
I so move,
May
Mr.
we
President.
entertain a motion to that effect?
I move.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Therefore,
Then-
we now can act on the motion of Senator Bato, which will fall under Section 29, which is, or rather, sorry, Section 28, which, 1 to 8,
One to
Section
eight.
1 to 8, I'm sorry, Section 1 to 8, on a two-thirds vote of all members that decides to lift the ban of secrecy to allow the Blue Ribbon Committee to divulge the information. Mr. President. I'm sorry, the Justice and Blue Ribbon Committee.
On both committees that
That is correct, Mr. President.
conducted the executive session. All right, so that is may I reiterate the motion before I recognize the minority leader? The motion is to authorize the Committee on Justice and Blue Ribbon to divulge the contents of the executive session, the last executive session of the committee. Minority leader is recognized.
Will the gentleman yield to a few clarificatory questions, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, absolutely. To my
Mr.
distinguished
President, the
minority.
motion is to authorize the Blue Ribbon
That's
Committee to divulge. I assume this is just a reiteration and strengthening and reiteration of the rule, because under the rules, as I understand it, the committee having the jurisdiction over this issue is the authority under our rules to divulge statements or testimonies in executive session for public consumption. So that there is nothing wrong, I don't see anything wrong with this motion. I just want to, the first question, it should not be interpreted that in future actions of any committee, the committee would have to seek the decision of the plenary. In other words, they can act on its own in accordance with our rules. And the motion that we are passing now does not in any way alter that rule that the committee retains jurisdiction and can act accordingly, whether or not there is a vote on the floor.
Actually, Mr. President, to be very honest about it, I'm quite confused why Section 11 allows the committee to open up statements in executive session, because our main rules, the rules governing the Senate, is explicit on a two-thirds vote. To be very honest, I think this is a contradiction of our main rule 128.
Nevertheless, in the query of the minority leader, the ruling of the chair is in the affirmative. He
Yes,
is correct.
Yes, that's correct, in the affirmative.
All right. Having said that, Mr. President, thank you for that ruling. Having said that, theoretically, and I underscore that theoretically, can the Blue Ribbon and Justice Committee disregard that authority and on its own decide not to divulge the contents of the testimony taken in executive session?
Yes, the answer
Yes.
is in the affirmative,
affirmative.
again.
That is
Majority
correct,
leader,
Mr.
yes.
President. That is correct.
Because he may
Yes,
We did not say that he should.
Yes,
The
that
Blue
is correct.
Ribbon may. He's being authorized.
Yeah, so that I just go back to the previous statement then that, in fact, this will just strengthen the hand of the committee that there is authority. Because
Yes.
in fact, it has the authority.
Yes.
What I'm just making certain is that in the future, the power of the committee is not diminished by the vote that we are taking today. That the rule that the committee has remained has jurisdiction over the matter having been referred to them, to that committee, should not be deprived of the power to decide on this issue.
You agree, Majority Leader?
I agree, Mr. President, but Senator Lacson would like to share another,
Mr. President.
another view.
Yes, Senator Lacson.
Are we not the committee? We are all members of the committee of the Blue Ribbon and the Justice Committee. The chairman is not the committee. We are the committee. And since we are voting in favor of the motion, the vote of the committee has been carried, effectively carried, Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes,
if
Minority
it
Leader.
pleases the good gentleman from Cavite, the fact that we are all members of a committee doesn't make the action of the plenary in substitution of the decision of the committee valid, because technically we have no jurisdiction anymore. That jurisdiction having been vested in the committee. That is why when we have the order of business and the reference of business, we refer it to the committees. And you need to vote in order to bring that back to plenary. But we're not doing that now. We're just reiterating the rule that the Committee on Justice and Blue Ribbon are hereby authorized to exercise its power
Yes.
under the rules.
Correct. That is the proper perspective. Because what we are doing now is we are merely asserting the power of the Senate over the committee, for the record.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Actually,
Correct.
Mr. President, for the information of the body, when there is a particular committee report that's not being acted upon by, for example, a chairman, and 5 members, you only need 5 members to discharge the chairman or to pull out the committee report and assign to another member who could sponsor the measure on
or
floor,
bring
on
it to the
floor.
floor.
Bring it to the floor.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, I
Precisely,
cannot agree
yes.
more with the statement of the Senate President. The committee cannot overrule the plenary. The plenary can overrule the committee.
That's correct.
That's correct.
I think the
Precisely.
minority leader is just being naughty, Mr. President. Because the next thing we'll hear from
It actually came
him,
from the majority leader, Mr. President. His
next
query
thing-
was this: if the Blue Ribbon Committee does not exercise that authority, notwithstanding the authority given in the plenary, he is thinking of reorganizing the committee.
that is the point.
There's no truth to that.
Anyway,
So naughty.
do-
Okay, Mr. President,
All
it's
right,
very clear. I
again,
also,
the motion is very clear.
yes, Mr.
All right.
President, and
We are
I'm with
authorizing
you,
the committee.
and I'm with you, Mr. President, that the plenary is, the
We are
plenary
merely asserting our
can
power
assert the
over the
power
committee.
over the committee.
And we are authorizing the Blue Ribbon, the Committee on Justice, to divulge the contents of his executive session.
Yes, Mr.
All right. So,
I so move, Mr. President, we make a nominal voting on
oh
this.
yes, to make sure that there are 2/3 in the hall. The secretary will conduct a roll call vote.
But Pacquiao cannot vote because he has no out of order. There's no tie.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
I vote in the affirmative. With 17 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention, the motion is adopted and carried.
Just a manifestation.
Minority
for
Leader is
purposes of
recognized.
explaining my vote. We vote with, I want to make a record our reservations. We voted in the affirmative and we maintain that vote. Our reservation is that our rules are very clear that the committee has the power.
Has the power.
Has the power, but there is nothing wrong with this resolution since it just reiterates a rule that we have in the
Yes.
rules. That authorizing the committee, actually, that is that is a decision that is already in the rules. When we adopted the rules, the plenary authorized the committee to act on this issue, and therefore, when we pass this resolution, it is nothing more than a reiteration of that rule as found in the rule book. So, notwithstanding the reservations of the majority leader, we
We understand and in fact concur with the perspective of the Minority Leader. Senator Ontiveros is